Hello again, and welcome back to Mentor Moments Growing Beyond Failure. My name is Dr. Hunter. I am an OBGYN that practices medicine in Virginia. Thank you guys again for coming back. I truly appreciate it. If this is your first time, please make sure to like, subscribe, share all the things. If you have feedback for me, certain things you'd like to see, hear me talk about, let me know. Send me a DM. Follow me on Instagram at Dr. Ahan Hunter. And without further ado, let's go into the episode. So today's episode is episode 4, Acing the Interview. My goal today is to talk to you more about how to conquer the interview itself, no matter what kind of interview you're going for. And I'll talk on more specifics on certain medical interviews that you may or may not be going on. And then those who may not be in medicine, you just want tips and tricks on how to ace an interview. Know that some of this is very specific to doctors as a whole as you go throughout the process of becoming a doctor, and then after you finish residency and getting a job then afterwards. So here we go. Number one, the biggest thing that I would say, the biggest advice that I could give anybody is when it comes to the interview is you have to do your homework, okay? This is something that is not fun. It is not sexy. It ain't something you want to do, but it's super, super important. And the one thing I would say is doing your homework will help make the interview day itself so much better. Because when you understand the person across the room from you and the person sitting either across the table from you or the city you're going to, you understand the institution you're going to interview at or the job you're going to interview at, it makes the day so much better. And you across the board will look better than every other person that's there, because I promise you everyone has not done their homework. Some people just showed up fresh, looked at the website really fast before they walked in there the same day, and just are not locked in. So that, I would say, is going to be key. We're going to talk homework, and then we'll talk all these other things, especially like interview day, what to bring, what to wear, all that jazz. But homework is number one. So the interview day itself, you want to, if you are interviewing for, we're going to use residency as a big example. So you're a medical student wanting to become, for instance, an OBGYN, and you want to interview for residency. What I want you to do is, before every residency program you interview for, I want you to take notes on each place. Go to the website. Go to the program's website for that specialty, and then go to the whole institution's website when it comes to the entire hospital system. Get an idea of what their vision and their mission is. A lot of them are very generic, but there are some key things in there that I think are important, parts of certain aspects that you want to pull out. For instance, if there's a place that seeks to serve the underserved, right? Those who are impoverished, those who come from backgrounds where they don't have a lot of income, have Medicaid, higher Medicaid, and not only unemployed, but really uninsured populations. That's a key thing to know, because that's not going to be every place that you go and interview at. So how do they tackle helping those patients and dealing with the barriers that come with helping patients like that? Because when you don't have resources at your fingertips, at least you don't know about them as a patient that may be uninsured or have Medicaid, how does the institution help them get those resources so then they can get the care that they need? So that's a big one. The other key thing is look at who the hospital president is, the CEO, the head of the hospital, the head of the department, and who the head of the program is. So knowing who those people are, their backgrounds, where they come from, are they all from that same institution, or are those folks from different places around the country? I think it's important to know where people come from as far as where they grew up and then where they train. It's usually in their bio somewhere. And then when you sit down, you never know who's going to interview on the day of the interview day. So if someone sits down and interviews you and it's one of those higher ups, if you have an idea of who that person is and you know who that person, where they come from, then you have a better idea of sort of what you can do to kind of bridge that gap, kind of open up that conversation and dialogue, and you can talk to them about literally whatever. So the key thing is to understand who the people are in front of you. The other thing is what makes that program special. A lot of websites try to put that on there, especially residency program websites, where they try to highlight certain things that they give off. Either it's that they have a really big GYN oncology program, or excuse me, whether they have fellowship or not. For those who don't understand what a fellowship is, essentially what happens is to become a certain type of doctor, there's residency where it's like doctors in training. So you go to medical school where you learn how to become just a MD or DO doctor, doctor. And then there is training afterwards where it's almost like on the job training where you specialize in a certain field, but you're being paid, and not a lot, but you're being paid to learn how to become that specific type of doctor. And then after that, then there is more training, higher level specialized training, which is called fellowship. And so there's interviewing for that too. It's just like interviewing for residency. So I've been told I never interviewed for a fellowship. Don't want to know parts, but apparently it's quite similar. The structure wise, quite similar. So that's a big one. So I would say understanding the institution, the program, and then the people, at least the higher ups there, are a good thing to kind of know. If you are somebody who can peruse a website, just kind of keep it all locked in here, then that's fine. I like to take notes, and I think notes are really cool and really important, and they are helpful because you can just pull them out real fast. The day of the interview day, you can look over your notes like the night before, look over them real quick the day of, just to remind yourself, because as you're sitting down and you're going throughout the day, it's moving kind of quickly. All this stuff is happening. The day is kind of long depending on where you go and interview, and sometimes you forget the little notes and things, little tidbits that you may have put down to remember throughout the day. So write notes and keep a good list and make them sort of organized for you, not for anybody else, but more what your organization style is, if that is helpful. And then speaking of taking notes, my big advice is I tell everybody to, on the day of the interview, bring some sort of portfolio pad of some sort, something that is easy to carry around. It could be small, it could be a little bit bigger, but something where you can take notes as you go. It's not going to be cumbersome to walk around with it, and you're not going to look awkward walking around with something in your hand. You want it very bland. If you can have it without any logos or symbols on it, that's even better. Something that's like super just run of the mill. Specifically, because that, to me, the goal of that thing that you're holding is more so for you, less for the people around you. It's more so to help you keep your day organized and understand, and maybe even write down questions that you may want to bring up later on. Also, when it comes to interview days, questions are important. My big advice to a lot of people is you always want to have at least 2 to 3 good questions at your fingertips in your arsenal that you can either take to multiple places or that's very specific to that place in general. And I think there are not a lot of questions that are off limits, in my opinion. So it depends on what your focus is on. But I do think that having questions is going to be super important, because if you just show up, you let people ask you questions, but you never ask anything of them, how do they know that you really want to go there? Whether you do or you don't, like, how do you sell yourself if you're not really trying to be engaged and asking questions? The problem is there is such a thing as a dumb question on an interview day, in my opinion, because to me, a dumb question is if there's an answer to it on the website and it's an obvious answer, meaning you shouldn't show up to a place, again, if you're interviewing for residency, asking, do you guys have fellows here? That is an obvious answer. Now, if it's not obvious on the website, you can then bring up and say, and you can preface your question by saying, I went on the website and had a hard time understanding if you all have fellowships or not. I know that some residents match in the fellowship, but are there fellowships here? That is a different type of question. But if you just raise your hand, hey, quick question, do you guys have fellows here? Like, it's a dumb question, because you want to ask questions that are actually going to enhance and let people know that you have done your homework, that you actually care, and that you want to be more invested in the program. And if you just ask like blanketed questions, then how do they know? Because like anyone can look that up. Any person who's not even in medicine can look that up and find that answer for you. AI can give you that answer. So I think that it's more important to have like some really thought out questions written and ready to go. So on the day of interview day, you'll be ready to just like rock and roll and just crush it. The other key thing is, the question of like what to wear. So again, if you're doing a residency interview or fellowship interview, Usually you go out twice for many programs. Now, because of COVID, a lot of like the in-person things went away. But I'll tell you how my interview day was, and night and then day was, and how we did it when I was a resident. And then I don't know if this is going to change or not, but just hear me out. It used to be the night before your interview day, the residents or some faculty would take you out to dinner. So you go to some dinner someplace, and it could be a small venue, it could be a larger venue. Sometimes it's quiet and quaint, and sometimes it's big and loud. So you just never really know. As far as like what to wear for uh, that attire for that event, usually you're told sort of business casual. You get like this blanketed like business casual thing. So I think for guys, I think it's easier because business casual for us is usually like either a button down shirt or a polo shirt with either jeans or some sort of like slacks, like khakis or something. We try to like it makes it very, very easy and simple. For women, a lot different. You guys have a lot of different arsenal. So my opinion is ask others who have done this before you, what did you wear to your interview? Or ask attendings, hey, if they say business casual, what would you say certain things could be? And you sometimes want to bounce things off of people, send people pictures of what you want to try and wear, put on, all that jazz. Maybe even take a picture and send it to somebody to make sure you don't look too crazy. You don't want to draw attention to yourself when it comes to a dinner like this. You're not trying to wear the biggest earrings you have, the biggest necklace or rope chain. You're trying to like be very sort of nonchalant, run of the mill as far as clothing is concerned. You're not trying to draw a ton of attention to yourself. Be yourself. Let people know who you are without being the brightest and loudest person in the room, because the brightest and loudest person in the room is not always received the way that you want people to receive you. And I think that is a big thing. Another thing as far as going out to dinner, especially the night before, is ordering food. In my opinion, if someone's taking you out to dinner, usually if it's a bigger setting, there's like a meal already there or different things that are already there. So you just kind of select from what's there. But if you have to sit down and order food, my opinion is you don't need to order the cheapest thing on the menu, but you also don't need to order the most expensive either. This is not the time to order steak and lobster if that is the most expensive thing on the menu, because it's going to be free. To me, it's more important to just like order something that is not messy, something that is easy to eat, that you either can eat some of and then pack and take with you, or something that is not going to cause any disturbances. For instance, chicken wings or hot wings, right? If you are going to eat hot wings with your hands, you got to understand that you're in an interview, right? People are going to be talking to you. You don't want to have hot wing sauce all in your mouth, all in your hands while you're trying to sit and talk and eat with people. Salad is a good one, but you don't want a messy salad. You don't want a salad that as you eat, it's like the dressing is going to drop on your shirt and you're going to have stains on your clothes. Like, you're going to try to avoid certain things. Balsamic is not what you want on salad when you have on a white shirt, because you're going to see it. Like, you want to try to avoid certain meals. If you know where they're going to take you the night before, go ahead and look at the menu. No one has to know you've already done it, but look at it and then choose safe meals. You don't have to decide exactly what you're going to order, but choose something safe just so you're more comfortable with what's going on and what's on the menu. And then the other piece to it is, when it comes to ordering cocktails, you have to know your limit. If you know that 2 glasses of wine is your limit and you will be buzzed after that or even more, don't order wine. Just order something else that's non-alcoholic. It doesn't look bad if you don't order an alcoholic beverage. If you don't drink, don't drink. Don't order stuff you don't know what it is. People, I think, fall into this trap sometimes where you feel like you have to blend in with everybody else. If everyone else around the room is ordering some kind of cocktail and you don't drink for whatever reason, you don't need to say, I'm gonna order a cocktail too, and then just like blatantly compromise who you are. Don't do that. Just order what you like. Now, if you know you can throw it back, don't throw it back. Okay? 1 drink is usually pretty good. 2, you're not really playing it safe here. Okay? You're skirting. Definitely don't order 3. Like, don't dare. Because the moment you start getting kind of buzzed, you start kind of talking a little, your words start to slur a little bit. Now you can't take it back. You can't make yourself sober real fast. So you got to watch that too. So that's a big asterisk there. So again, this is knowing a lot about yourself is the key to these interviews. The other big thing to know is on the day of the interview itself. So normally, like I said earlier, they take you out the night before. Then the next morning is like a full day interviewing where we took like for instance, my interview for residency at VCU, we took a tour of the city, and we were like on this bus, took a tour of the city. You sit down, you talk to a lot of the residents the night before and the day of. A lot of it is very much just trying to get comfortable with the hospital. They give you a tour of the hospital. You see labor and delivery, you see postpartum, you see clinic, you like go around to all these places. And it's a lot of just like shuffling place to place because of that. Speaking of what to wear something that's comfortable as far as shoes. You're going to be moving, okay? You're going to be walking, sitting down, walking, sitting down, walking. Again, I feel as though for men, a little bit easier. We can just choose shoes that either with some sole to it, some comfortableness to it, or something that's very nonchalant, that you know that you can walk around, a half a mile in, no problem. For women, not as easy, right? You want to sometimes choose heels because you feel like, ooh, shows off them calves. Here we go, let's go. The problem is, if you can't make it up some stairs and you can't walk it around, don't wear it. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to trip and fall. You don't want to roll your ankle. You don't want people having to roll you around in a wheelchair. Like, you don't want to deal with any of that mess. Because now you're going to be known as the girl who couldn't walk in her heels on interview day by the people who are interviewing you. And you don't want to be known as that because that's just going to carry with you. I'm not saying it's going to keep you from getting a spot, but what I am saying is it can. And you want to minimize risk is what interview days is about. Minimizing as much risk as possible. You want people to see the interior you as much as the outside you. And you don't want them to see a lot more outside and less inside you. Inside you is what comes out in the midst of hard situations, when you're in compromising situations, when you're working, or when you're working with bigger groups of people and other physicians and other providers. You want the inside you to come out because that's what people trust and what they want to see. The outside you can just, put on a face and you be golden, you rock and roll. Excuse me. The other thing is that on interview day, I think it's very important to practice. So some programs, some places will allow you to do practice interviews. Practice interviews are good for two reasons. One, it helps you get the nerves out to kind of get an idea of what the day is like. And two, it kind of helps you get feedback without being penalized for, wasting, quote unquote, an interview. So my opinion, I think it's better to practice on camera, like something like this, first before you sit down and talk to anybody. You want to know what you look like on camera. You want to know what people are perceiving when they sit and see you. When you are sitting down and you're being asked questions, you got to know stuff about yourself. Do I have RBF? Right? If you know you have RBF and you know what that means, I'm sorry I can't say it out loud because I'm trying not to cuss on this podcast. So if you know you got bad RBF, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. You know you got bad RBF. What you need to do is you need to find ways to minimize the intensity of said RBF, right? You want to focus and figure out how to give a little life to your face so then people won't be put off by just sitting down looking at you. So, and that's not terrible, but like, you only have so much time in each of these places. So you want to, again, minimize risk. That's the key. So do you have RBF and do you not? Do you smile too much? Are your teeth constantly just here? You're just like here all the time. Then you got to focus on, all right, let me bring it down some. Let me just bring it in a little bit. I don't want to look too weird. I don't want too crazy. Do you do crazy eye stares where your eyebrows go up and you're just staring at people's soul? Like you don't know until you look at yourself and you've seen yourself on camera and then you're like, aha, here I am. If you're a sloucher, if you're kind of here all the time, then you want to figure out ways to get more comfortable when you sit in a chair. Little tips and tricks. Teach yourself little things to help get you to that point. If you feel yourself, you know that that's you, then you can sort of readjust every time you're sitting in front of somebody else in an interview. The other key thing is when you are being asked questions, you want to not just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. So that's where the practice interview comes in. because now, and take it serious. If you're going to do a real practice interview, take it really serious. If you want to really get in a good practice, you want to be like locked in, all in, and try to do everything you would naturally as if you were going to then become a future resident or attending or wherever you're going to go. Like you want to take it 100% serious. So the practice is more about, not about your specific answers, but how you answer, right? So it's, do I cut people off when they're talking to me or asking questions of me? So you have to be able to hold back and just let people get the whole question out. The other part is, are you very hesitant to give an answer, right? Do you hesitate too long to give an answer? And that's a problem too. I think hesitating a little bit longer is not as bad as just blurting out whatever or cutting people off. But if you know that you hesitate a little bit longer, like you're taking more like 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds to answer a question, like that's a problem, because doctors are like, so their attention span is so short. So if you wait too long to answer a question, the person interviewing you may just have like zoned out and they might not even hear the answer you're going to say. So you kind of want to be able to get it out in a short, concise manner. That's not just like yes, no, maybe so, but more gives a little bit of detail, but not too much detail. Because the other part of that is, some people are talkers like myself, and you can talk too much. So much so, speaking of talk too much, this is my ADD hour right here. This is me digressing. I recorded a whole video, this exact same video before this, and I didn't even plug in this microphone. And I was just a talk. This episode was going very long. So I'm kind of glad it didn't record, so then I can shorten this up a little bit and make it a little bit more concise for you. Let me get back on topic. Here we go. So key is, watch your answers, okay? Take note, I haven't even told you how to answer questions. I haven't even given you examples of questions, right? I'm just saying you got to know how to attack said answers. It's not always about the answer. It's about how you answer and how honest you are when you make the answer. Don't make up stuff. People can tell when you're lying, and folks will be like, no, I'm a great liar. Don't lie, because it comes back up later. Like, it's going to come back up later. Let's say you lied, like you told this huge lie, and then you get a spot, and then you get there, and then they ask you more about something you said, and you don't remember the answer because you lied. Now you're in a big pickle. Just because you get a spot does not mean they will always keep that spot. You can be let go. You can be fired as a resident. It's one of the worst things I think can happen, but you can be fired. So don't take advantage. You want people to choose you because of who you are, not because of who you want them to think you are. Because if you portray somebody else that you are not, and then you get to that place, you're going to have a hard time really learning and integrating into that culture that is that place where you're doing your residency, because you can't keep up the image that you portrayed, that you wanted them to see. You have to be all the way you. The other peak to this is, as far as the interview part is that, in my opinion, you have to focus in on now the questions themselves. You're not going to get these like, tell me a time when you were at your worst. Tell me a time when you had a hard time working with a group of people. Those questions are gone. Like, you're going to get more in-depth questions. The one thing I didn't talk about, and I will hammer this home here, is that a big piece of the interview day, no matter what kind of interview you are interviewing for, is that before you got in that interview, you had to submit an application that had stuff on it. Had volunteer stuff, said what kind of research you've done, said what your interests are, something. Has all of your info on there. Look at your own application and know what's on there. Get a grip of what information is there and understand what the information is talking about, especially research. If you have research on your application, if you decide and you're like, I'm going to take this big old leap and I'm going to put research on here. If you put research on there and you don't know what you did for said research, then what you need to do is either clarify on your application that all you did was data entry and you don't really understand the actual science behind the research, which is a terrible thing to say, but if that's all you did and you don't know anything about it, you either need to leave it off, which is what I would do, or say more about that in your application itself so people don't ask you, because you don't want to be asked about research that you don't understand. And so I didn't put anything on my curriculum vitae, CV, or anything else that I didn't understand. So make sure you understand the information that's on your application before you get there. and then have one thing that you are the most passionate about on your application that you can just talk about for hours. Okay, you could just go so far in something that is very meaningful to you, because sometimes the question you get is, tell me about the most meaningful thing that's on your application. And you have to, number one, know what's on there. And then number two, have already decided what to pick and choose and know what's meaningful to you. If you know that off the bat, you don't even need to wait 3 seconds. You can just go in. You can just like rock it and be like, ah. So I was a part of this club, and I absolutely love this club, not because of just the name and what it represented, but because of the opportunities I was given in said club. I love this club because of the people, the camaraderie, the individuals who are all working together towards one common goal, whatever that common goal is. I don't care if it's just Habitat for Humanity. It doesn't even matter. But something that means something to you, that shows that you actually care about stuff other than just sitting around studying and just trying to be a doctor. Like you want to actually leave a hospital and make an impact on the world outside of said hospital. That is the kind of stuff you want to focus on. If you went on a trip, it may have only been a 2-week trip someplace in your life. That 2-week trip changed your life, maybe told you to help you decide that you wanted to be a doctor, or help you decide you want to be this particular type of doctor. Talk about that thing. Doesn't matter. Just make sure it's on your application. And make sure you're ready to just go ham and go all in on that. Because if you are not, then I think personally that's a problem. And then the other key thing is, also make sure you have little hobbies and tips and tricks on your application that you're ready to talk about too, because you want to show that you care and you know more about stuff other than medicine. And I don't care if your hobby is reading Harry Potter books or playing chess on the computer and you're like a chess champion. Who cares what it is? As long as it's interesting, and interesting is a very subjective term, but interesting to you and something that is not really medicine related, if you can. Your life is not all medicine. It can't be. Like if it is, then you're going to get burnt out real fast, because medicine is daunting, it is tiring, and there are a lot of people who don't understand medicine that are constantly trying to sabotage medicine. Constantly want to get in between you and the patient in front of you, or if you do like pathology or radiology, the patient number in front of you or the information in front of you, try to get in between you and treating and helping people. There are a lot of people trying to get in that way. And if all you do is medicine, you will get burnt out so fast, because you have to learn how to turn the switch off and go out and do something else. And so that is a big key for me that I would say to hone in and put on your application. I've already told you, I think on episode 1, that I play music, right? Like I play the drums. I play a little bit of piano. I played the oboe for years. I was in the band. I was in marching band. I was in orchestra. Excuse me, not marching band. I was in orchestra. I was in, it wasn't a marching band, but it was a marching band like thing in college, like all these different things. So like I did these things because I enjoyed them. It had nothing to do with medicine, nothing. So you want to make sure you have something like that on your application. Another big thing is, I'm trying to look through my list, make sure I got it all. Oh, perfect. Last but not least is when they ask you the question, do you have any questions? Do not say, no, I'm good. Always have a question, right? Remember I told you earlier, you want to have some like really insightful questions that you've written down on your notepad, ready to rock and roll. If you already have that ready to go, you can open your little portfolio and say, oh, yes. Hold on one second. Let me make sure. Yes, I had a question about X, Y, and Z. It could be minutia. It could be as simple as, if you have children, when you're interviewing for something, you can talk about childcare. Hey, does the system, does the hospital, does your program, whatever, help with childcare? That's not a crazy question to ask. I asked that on every single interview I went on when I was interviewing for residency. Every single one. Because my ex-wife, well, wasn't my ex-wife then, but ex-wife at the time was pregnant. So like I asked everybody, I wanted to know, like, what the heck am I going to do with my kid when I start residency? And so people were very open and honest. And I could tell the people who were not used to folks having kids while they were residents and people who were. And if that is a big ask that you want, and you know that you want children either during that tenure while you're there, then you should ask more children related questions, because I think that's very important. You don't necessarily need to ask like, what does your paternity leave look like if you're interviewing for residency? Because I mean, you can, but it's sort of convoluted. That's a very harder question to ask. But maternity leave, that's makes sense. If you're interviewing for a job outside of residency, like after, you can ask about paternity or maternity leave. How long is it? How do you get it? How is it granted? How do you sign up for it ahead of time when you match or when you decide to come to this job? You ask about those things. Ask questions as if you're coming, right? Ask questions that tell you that say, hey, I'm very interested if when I come, would I be able to do X, Y, and Z, right? You can ask about the city. You can ask them about the food in the city. What's the food scene like? If you're a big foodie and you like to go out to eat, you and your spouse like to go out to eat all the time, or you like to go out by yourself. I like to ask, but the question not to ask, do not ask this question is, what do you guys like to do for fun? That is the most generic question that gets asked every single place. Do not ask that question. Someone else is already going to ask it. So you don't need to be the one known to ask that one. Don't ask it because people do a lot of stuff. Okay. A lot of stuff. Everyone does something for fun, whatever that thing is. Nowadays, like if you ask my kid, what he likes to do for fun is to watch, I don't know, some counting card game thing on the TV, or he likes to go outside and ride his bike. Like that's what he likes to do for fun, but that's him. I don't like to do those things. So like really what you're asking is, do the people there like to do the things that you like to do for fun? So a different type of question is, if you're a big hiker, is there hiking around the area? And really, honestly, in my opinion, again, I think that's a wasted question because you can look that up, right? You can go to city-data or data, depends on how you say it, data.com, and you can look up the demographics of the city that you're going to be around. And then you can look up hiking. You can Google hiking near this city and you can go ahead and figure that out. So then you can more ask, like, do people hike here? Do people go hiking, and do they go X, Y, and Z places? Because that's really more what you want to know, right? You don't want to know like what they do, because like if they do things that you don't care about, then like whatever, who cares? But really what you want to know is, do other folks do the things you want to do, and will you hang out with them? If you have a spouse and you know that you're going to be hanging out more with your spouse, less with like the residents all the time, don't ask all that stuff if you're not going to go out with them. Because if you say you want to do all this stuff and then you get there and you never want to hang out with them, then it's sort of a turnoff, right? Like, why would you ask all those questions if you're never going to go? I'm one of those people that I love to hang out with my family. So I didn't ask all those questions because I knew I am a quote unquote homebody in a sense. I didn't always go out when everyone else went out or went hiking. I actually hate hiking. I almost died going up the hill when we hiked for our resident retreat. And if any of my co-residents are listening to this, they know, and they might be laughing because I was almost half dead on top of that dang old mountain, and I'm never doing it again. So you don't got to worry about that about me. But what I'm saying is, you want to ask questions that more align with things that you're interested in, because once you get to higher levels as far as where you're trying to interview for, you're interviewing more so to know, are you going to be a fit in that place? Not like, please take me, but more like, will I be a fit here? You've already passed the test of like, please take me, because they asked you to come for an interview. So that's already done. Now it's like, are you a fit? And you have to figure out if you're a fit in this place just as much as they have to figure out if you're a fit in this place. You have to mesh. And so you have to ask the right questions in that finite amount of time. And the other thing, big question to ask is, when someone's interviewing you and you can quickly know who you can, like, sometimes they give you the list of who's interviewing you that day. And so when you have breaks and stuff, you have time to kind of look some stuff up on your phone. What I would do is look up the 3 or 4 different people interviewing you and look up some stuff from the website about them, where they're from, where they trained, where they, if they worked outside of the program you're going to go to for a while or came back, or if they're a lifer, meaning they did undergrad, med school, residency, and now are working there. You can ask a lot of questions centered around what made people decide to go to these different places, because personally, I think that's a good question. Not so much like what made you decide to go to med school here, because like usually med school is like, I want somebody to just take me. But more after that, it's like, what made you decide to come here versus go over here, or stay closer to home, or yada, yada, yada. It may have been related to family, it may have been related to opportunities. You never know until you ask. And so you ask about those things. So I think that's a key one to know. And then last but not least, a couple of post-residency interview jobs, tips and tricks, some stuff that I really want to put out there really quickly, and I'll talk about more in a future episode. The one thing is, if and when you're looking for a job after residency, try not to use a recruiter. Here's why. Recruiters are fantastic. They will help you go throughout the process and figure out who's hiring. They'll tell you about the practice. They'll tell you all these little demographic stuff about it, like what the pay is, what the call schedule is if you have to take call, where you take call, how many individuals are in the practice, what they're going to ask of you, what the malpractice insurance is. They'll tell you what the bonus structure is if they have a bonus structure, all these little nuances, right? They'll tell you all this stuff. After you interview with a person, they'll call you to ask you how their interview went. You can ask things of them to then relay to the practice. Hey, I forgot to ask about X. Can you ask them about da 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 da? And then you can do stuff through them. So they're a good like intermediary. Here is the downside. They cost a lot of money. Okay. So to use a recruiter, you don't pay anything, but the practice that is hiring this recruiter pays a lot of money to them if you decide to come to them. So now that's money out of your pocket that then goes to them. You can ask and command more money, especially bonus money, relocation money, if you do it all yourself, because now you've done all the legwork. All you got to do, in my opinion, is figure out where you want to go, where you want to live. When you figure out where you want to live, ask people who have been in those states, those areas before, and see if they have any contacts there. If they do, or know of anybody who's going to any of those practices, you can reach out yourself. You can either cold call the practice itself, ask to speak to the practice manager, and you just ask, hey, and you say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm Dr. Hunter. I am going to be a graduate of residency in the next time. Wanted to know if you guys are interested in hiring for another provider for the practice. That's it. The worst they can say is no. And so if you already know some of that stuff ahead of time, then you've already done the legwork for yourself. You called them yourself. Now you can command more money. You can command more stuff. You can ask the questions, and I'm going to talk more about like what to ask for when it comes to a post-residency job, is like other than salary, because there's a lot more pieces to it other than the salary. And I'm going to have someone else to help with that too, to give another perspective. But I think just cold calling people is super helpful. The other one is get your CV ready. Use AI to make your CV look fantastic. You want your CV to be 2 pages or less. You don't want it to be 3, 4, 5 pages. No one's going to read all that. That's too long. People don't have that much time. When I get a CV from somebody who's going to interview at our practice, I will look at it, but I don't usually go past page 1 generally, unless like I know that there's a bunch of like research in the middle. I don't really care as much about research as far as like what research they've done, because where I work, we're not doing bench research at all. We're not really doing a lot of like clinical research. So like I don't care as much about that, because I'm like, you're not going to do that while you're here. That's not where you're going to make your impact. So I'm like, is that even worth it? You know? So, and then the other piece is, we'll talk about more about this later, but like your top wants, right? Top 3 wants from said job. And then I think that will kind of help you figure out what to ask them when you call and you want to speak to somebody. Some places have recruiters and some places have just like the office manager. So you just call to speak to any of those folks. Sometimes they'll give you an email, you email them, whatever works. This stuff is like the military though. It's a hurry up and wait system. You get all this stuff, you talk to all these people real fast, and all of a sudden silence for like a month. And you're like, dang, did they forget about me? And then all of a sudden they call you back. And you're like, oh, there you go. Hello. Hey, how's it going? So just be mindful of that. Okay, perfect. Last but not least, I think I had promised in a prior episode that I would talk about different things that are on this shelf, and I forgot. I think the last episode, so I'm going to talk about more. So the one I talked about, my really good friend, can I find it? There he goes. Friend here is Cam. We talked about him before. Another one that I will talk about is, if I can get it to, yeah, here we go. This little thing here. This is a drawing that I had a friend of mine from high school draw for me that was going to be a tattoo on my back. I was ready for it. I was going to put it, like, it was going to be a big one. I was like ready to rock and roll. I go with some friends down to Atlanta to a tattoo shop. I'm like, here we go. It's going to happen. And I chicken out the moment the guy says, what do you want? And I said, I want to sit down and eat a snack. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's my little picture there. It says, it's a Bible verse. So again, I draw a lot of identity from my faith. I don't make all of my decisions based on my faith, if that makes sense, especially clinically. But I draw my identity of like who I am and what fuels me from my faith. So without ado, that's it. That's episode 4. Thank you guys for listening again. I really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Ahan Hunter. If you have any suggestions, questions about anything, whatever it is, shoot me a DM. I will continue to kind of rock and roll these bad boys out, and I'll see you later. All right. This has been Mentor Moments, Growing Beyond Failure. If you hear my son in the background, I'm sorry. Thanks. Bye.